Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Actually, no, I'm freezing. You know, it's snowing in Detroit right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to snow here soon. So.
Yeah, I think
I'm
tomorrow.
sending it to you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Oh, man. But it sounded like you were definitely keeping busy, huh?
Well, I'm trying to find things to do. But, you know, frankly, right now I'm supposed to be in Muncie, Indiana. I'm supposed to be doing another residency out there. Should have been there the whole month of April,
Right.
kind of thing. So this is postponed until we don't know when. It's frustrating. Can I tell you? It's frustrating. But I did find 2 solo shows to do in February. I just barely snuck it in under the COVID deadline, kind of thing.
Oh.
So lucky me. Some things are working, but now nothing is anymore.
Well, we're talking with Jeff Schofield today from Detroit, Michigan. Jeff was a resident at Main Street Arts in November of 2019. Jeff, do you want to just tell people what you were doing while you were at your residency at Main Street Arts?
Yeah, so I went out there to work on sustainable projects using found objects. And the objects that I found to use are all these old boards from a barn that was falling apart. And so before it got demolished, I took the old barn wood and hung it on the wall to make a very provocative kind of artwork that just talks about, you know, a 130-year-old barn built in the 1880s. It's falling apart because, you know, bad weather conditions, extreme weather. And just talking about, you know, how humanity tries to insert itself into nature. And it doesn't really work because, well, that was not a very sustainable barn. Well, it was sustainable for 130 years, but now recently been falling apart. So this is the work that I've been doing. And it was really fun to be there in New York. November. It was nice and warm when I got there and freezing cold when I left.
Just the way it works, yeah. And what have you been doing since your time at Main Street Arts?
Okay, so I'm been doing 2 different solo shows out here. Well, one here in Detroit at a place called Hatch Art, and it's a local art gallery downtown, and it's for emerging artists like me. And the name says it very well, Hatch Art. And so this was a show that I did to talk about rising sea levels, kind of a thing, and that's the postcard from the invitation to the show. And I put all kinds of found plastic items hung in the ceiling at Hatch Art. And then I did another solo show in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was February and March. And this is the postcard from that, where I recycled all kinds of found items, wood items. This is burnt firewood from a forest fire here in Michigan. I hung it in the art gallery. It was very provocative, very emotional kind of thing. Now, that show was over at the end of March, but the gallery had closed before then because of COVID. The artwork is still there. I still haven't brought it back to Detroit, and we're in May.
Oh, boy.
It's
Doing
still
an on-air presentation, right?
Amazing. It really is. So this is a logistical issue that I need to adapt to in COVID-19. But I'm glad the artwork is still there because the gallery is very, very nice. It's got a great big huge picture window, and you can still see the artwork inside as you drive past, kind of thing. So it's interesting. It is. It's interesting.
And what's it been like for you and your work since this whole thing has started, other than your current show or past show now?
Extended show.
Being prisoner. Yeah.
So I have another artist residency that I should be doing right now in Muncie, Indiana. This is Ply Space. And I should be out there actually with a collaborator of mine. And now this was postponed, but it was like, you know, a 6-week artist residency to work out there in the landscape in Muncie. You do some pieces in the urban setting, We had identified some fall apart buildings that we could work with. Also out in the natural setting, there's a Prairie Creek Park on the edge of town where we were planning to go out there and work with, they're making trails, walking trails, jogging trails, biking trails that go through the woods and the meadows. And so we still hope to be there this summer sometime. But the opportunity was too good. The 22nd of April was Earth Day, and we had planned a special exhibition or at least some sort of an installation to do on that day. So it's very frustrating. Opportunities are there and they sort of, they evaporate or they get postponed, kind of a thing. So it's teaching me patience to go through this, if anything. It's teaching me patience. This is okay.
Well, that's a good outlook to have on it, I think.
Yeah. I'm also adapting the artwork that I do since I'm no longer mobile. I can't go out and find forest fires and old barns to resurrect. And so I find myself going through my neighborhood because I'm like that. I need to work with found objects. That's the kind of artist that I am. And so I'm working at a somewhat more modest scale and not so mobile as I used to be, while I'm applying for more residencies, because this is what I want to do, is more residencies like I did with you people last year. That's
great.
Yeah.
And I think you had sent us photos of a poetry thing that you had done as well. Can you talk about that?
Well, I'm working on different kinds of things. I had sent you photos of poetry reading that we did in the lawn. I live in a nice apartment building with other artists. These are people who are affiliated with Cranbrook Academy of Art. And so we went out and did a poetry reading on the theme of isolation and solitude. And so we brought out like 20 chairs and put them on the lawn. For me, this is a big image of COVID. I keep seeing this, when you look at conferences on TV, and all the chairs are spaced 6 feet apart, and there's sort of like a surreal aspect to it, which as a visual artist, I respond to that. Poetry sessions, we did 2 poetry sessions on the same lawn. And so that was a fun little thing to do. And it's good for the group too, because we know each other, we live in the same apartment building, but we still practice the social distancing in order to do this. And so we're all finding ways to adapt and make do, if you will, and celebrate the moment.
It's been interesting to see what people do to adapt, and because we all still want to do certain things and experience certain things, and figuring out the best way forward to do those things is difficult sometimes, but it's necessary for sure. Yeah. And so I'm continuing along that vein. You can see the images in the background behind me. These are vinyl surgical gloves that I saw in the streets of Detroit. They're abandoned, they're thrown away. And so I whipped out my iPhone, and I photographed these things, and I have something like 150 photos of vinyl gloves. If you find one vinyl glove, then slow down. You're going to find the other one on the same block. So what you see behind me is a study in different colors of blue, because this is medical blue color kind of a thing. And I see masks as well, surgical masks. And I found dozens and dozens of these. And so that's going to be a different photo montage that I do with the masks. And so this is my landscape here in Detroit. I'm seeing it this way. I don't know that in your neck of the woods you get this, but for me, this is an image here of COVID-19. This is what my neighborhood has become.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. No, it's interesting to see you collecting your imagery in different ways. Normally you'd be picking these things up, but now, to the nature of what these things are, you're just photographing them and then figuring out how to use them in your work. And I think that's really interesting.
And it's important for me too, because the gloves, you can see the hand of the person who is wearing them. And it doesn't have to be, a health worker. There's little shopping centers in my neighborhood. And this is where I find this kind of stuff. Wherever there's, a shop or a government office or something, people will be wearing gloves and masks, and they just pitch them in the parking lot on the side of the road, which is a shame. We've seen that with reduced economic activity, the pollution is going away, visibility is better, and so there's a good ecological repercussion in that regard. But people are littering more. There's an insipid aspect to this as well, and that's why I like these images. Are for me very emotional, very telling, because it is, a sign of the times that people still have a bit of a disregard, even though they're wearing the protective equipment and all. There's a paradox there. And so anyway, I'm just trying to find ways to show, just the multitude of it. It's not just one or two people, but many who are behaving this way. It's interesting. I find it fascinating. It's a human study. And so I kind of welcome the opportunity to reevaluate what I'm doing, approach it in a totally different way, just because, this is our time that we're going through right now. And if this is the way I can express it, then okay, fine, this is what I'll do. And sort of move on from here and hope to find, even more interesting stuff. I don't know what I'll be doing tomorrow, but it's kind of fun to be, to just look in different ways and let my art practice sort of evolve without really knowing where I'm going. It's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, and I think that that's the best way to use a situation like this. It's just let it be a time for growth for yourself and your work, and try and make meaningful work. I think that's all you can do.
Yeah, and I'm in touch with others as well. I mean, I'm collaborating with one artist, Ashley Beatty. She's my collaborator, and we're really looking at what does the virus mean in a world where we look for increased sustainability, which is all about the human being, our health, our well-being, and all this is really very much questioned, is sort of a thing. And so our role as artists in this regard, it's something that we're thinking about, and it's not easy. It really isn't. So we'll keep looking at it and hopefully keep finding interesting stuff to do. But the frustration, I think, is that there are so few ways right now to get out there. Art galleries are closed. You can't go to the museums. The whole art world, like the rest of the world, is just sort of on pause. And so the waiting game, too, is... well, I guess it's just part of the art practice right now. Hopefully it won't last terribly long.
Right. Yeah, and I know as, things start back up again, we'll see, a new version of what it was like to go to a museum and an art gallery too. So that'll be a whole other thing.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about like how you're saying that like you're kind of evaluating your artistic practice and kind of modifying it to this time that we're in. And I think like everybody's doing that. And even from a business standpoint, like from the gallery standpoint, we're having to do that too, just in a kind of a different way. So it's like universal across the board that everybody's kind of going through the same thing, no matter what their discipline is.
And I think it's a good thing too, because there's a lot of creative energy that goes into doing it, if you're going to do it right, I mean. And so I'm sure this will stay with you. It's a good process to sort of look at, try to understand, and adapt. And even for the art gallery, I'm sure it'll carry through in the future as you continue working on stuff. I'm anticipating that as well, that I'm not going to come out of this quite the same as when I was there in November.
Well, this has been really great to catch up and hear what's been going on. And you're definitely a person that's always I mean, it seems like you've got things planned, and then you got things planned, and then you got things planned, and so it's good to see you're keeping yourself busy, and I know you're on the lookout for stuff when things open up again.
Yes, always looking for some opportunities, kind of thing. But no, I love it. I really enjoy doing the art. I live for it. So you know me, I'm not going to stop. I'm really not.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
And we'll hope to hear again from you soon.
I'll certainly be in touch. And thanks for doing the conference. It's nice to talk to you about the stuff. I'm surprised I had this much to say, actually.
Yeah. No, it was great.
It's great to hear about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. All right. Well, take care.
Have a good day.
We'll talk soon.
Talk later.
My pleasure.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.